Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Question 1 by Mitadru. Reference Ishavasya Upanishad, Mantra 8. The translation reads, He is all-pervading, resplendent, without body, scatheless, without sinews, pure, untainted by sin, seer, omniscient, transcendent, and self-existent. He has allotted the respective duties for eternal years. Question A. Why Kavihi is translated as seer? B. Could you please elaborate on he has allotted the respective duties for eternal years?
Why is Kavihi translated as seer? Is your first question, right? Why you have another translation?
Generally, Kavi means like poet.
Kavi means poet. See, what you are referring to is thousands of years later, when Sanskrit underwent so many changes. This is modern. Kavi means poet. So if you read the Upanishads or the Vedas, Kavihi means one who sees. Sees what? The self. One who understands the self. And loosely, because this knowledge was in the form of musical verses, whether it's the Upanishads or the Gita, it came to be, they're all poems, right? The Gita is a poem. So later on, these are all, what do you call it? Diluted translations later. In the early days, the only persons respected and who were known as poets were the ones who knew the knowledge of the self, right? Kavi, in fact, means seer, the one who sees. Literal translation. You understand? So, see, I told you the whole culture those days was any composition was meant as an oblation to God, right? So even dance was performed only in the temple or in places of rituals and worship. It's a oblation. Music, if you see all classical music in India, not here, the theme is God. That's what makes it classical. The minute the theme becomes earthly, it ceases to be spiritual. So in those days, classical meant spiritual, in other words, right? Now classical, you can say anything. All this romance also is called classical. That's not what India was all about. So the poetry, the music, dance, anything you see had to have a spiritual theme. Correct? You're talking about Upanishads. So Kavi means seer, it means the one who sees. And elaborate on he has allotted the respective duties for eternal years. See, this is the one way to put it, to put how the creation is so perfect. So it's like saying he's allotted the sun the power to shine forever. You understand? He's allotted gravity to keep the same distance between the earth and the sun. Otherwise, the earth will freeze or it will boil. There's a few degrees here or there, right? So, who's kept these laws going for as long as the world is there? So, it posits a creator, as it were. There's no such thing. But what is it that has allotted? How is it that the world is functioning so beautifully? That's what he says. It comes from Brahman, because Brahman is the substratum of this world. Right? World perfects functions so perfectly. What must be Brahman? The one from which this perfection arises. Right? So that's the Upanishad. He's all pervading, resplendent, without a body. Means the consciousness, scatheless, without muscles, means no movement, but makes everything move. Pure, untainted by desire, sin, the one who sees, omniscient, transcendent, self existent. So he's talking about Brahman, the reality. These are the indicative definitions, like we've been doing in chapter 20. Right? Clear?
Question 2 by Pratiksha. A. When we gain spiritual understanding and try to reduce selfish desires, how do we deal with the desires already carried from past karmas? B. Do they need to be fulfilled for them to fade, or can they truly dissolve without experiencing them? C. How should we handle these lingering impulses?
So, Pratiksha, you there? There. So, when you say spiritual understanding, when we gain and try and reduce selfish desires, how do we deal with desires already carried from past karma? That is the selfishness, what you're talking about. See, all the desires you have now at this moment, let's say you have 500 desires, these are all a result of your own past karma. Karma means actions. Your past actions have created the present desires. So, when you are talking about dealing with desires through knowledge, which is what you need to do, if you want to get over desires, you need to understand something higher, right? That's the principle. You're always referring to your past desires, not the ones you're carrying starting from now on. That's different. So, do they need to be fulfilled for them to fade, or can they be truly dissolved without experiencing them? So, in principle, the only way to get rid of a desire is through knowledge. Only when you gain knowledge of the higher can you overcome the lower. By fulfilling a desire or indulging in a desire, it only creates more desires. It can never be fulfilled. No desire can ever be satiated. Impossible. So, in fact, you can only dissolve a desire through knowledge, not, not by experience. You see, it's like you have a desire to do drugs. Do you need to go through drugs to understand what desires do to you? What drugs do to you? You understand from the knowledge of past people who've gone through that experience. So Vedanta is nothing but the digest of the knowledge of galaxies of sages and saints who've gone through life. And they're teaching you from their experience. So there's a saying, fools learn from their own experiences. The wise through others. You must learn from others' experience, not go through the same mistakes and destroy yourself. So you must try and get rid of your desires through knowledge. There's no other way. Now, the only exception is if the desire is so powerful that it prevents you from gaining further knowledge, then to be able to gain knowledge, you go through the desire very carefully. So, a typical example of that is Swadharma. Swadharma is your basic nature to act in a particular field. So, let's say a person is craving from his lifelong childhood dream has been to be a doctor, and he's become a doctor and he really wants to work in that field. You can't say get away, try and gain knowledge. For him, it will not work. That desire is too powerful. So, what do we say? You gain the knowledge. let's say 1 hour in the morning or through these lectures as you all are doing. And then in your action, you have to go through it because you have such a powerful desire, right? But work for a higher purpose. Don't indulge in that action. Serve your patients. So slowly you will overcome even that desire. So you have to go through it to come out of it. Swadharma is one example. Marriage or desire for a partner is another example. Now, because of sheer survival of the species, nature has implanted that desire for the opposite sex so powerfully that you can't do without it. You got to be a stalwart, or you don't have that desire for whatever reason. Impotence. There are two types of people. So who is in that? So 99.9 have to go through. But again, that is what the Vedanta is all about. Grihastha, the Grihastha ashrama, the householder's life is all about. You go through it, but keep gaining the knowledge and don't indulge. Say, I am doing this ultimately to come out of it. I don't want to be dependent on this desire. You understand? So, with the exception of very powerful desires which prevent you from gaining knowledge, which you have to very carefully assess with a person who can think, not yourself, because you all will now full license. You have to do. Every desire is so powerful. You have to go through everything. No, there is no end to. So it has to be done very carefully if you are genuinely interested in overcoming. Otherwise, you will indulge. But the bulk of your desires, 95% of them, you just keep gaining the knowledge. As you appreciate the higher, lower desires will drop off. See, you had desires for toys, right? Now, once you become an adult, does it matter you didn't play with toys, certain toys as a kid? Do you look at children now and say, they have such better toys than what we had? Huh? I wish I can play with them. Does that thought even cross you? They're toys. You overcome that level. The other day I was in somebody's house and their grandson showed me what he'd made with Lego. You know that Lego now and what Lego we had? We had a square and block into like it's like prehistoric compared to what they have now. The full sports car you can make with Lego, I couldn't believe it. But when I came home, I didn't say, I want to play with that. In my childhood, I never got a chance. That fellow is having so much fun. I never had so. Will you ever say that? Lego is Lego. The kids. You overcome that because you understood the adult world. Lego is nothing compared to what you can have as an adult, right? You understand? So when you say lingering impulses, small things, very minor things, you can easily overcome with knowledge. So in fact, so many of students, they've overcome the desire for children even through knowledge. Some have not. They said it's too powerful, so they went ahead and had children. Both are correct. Some said with a little bit of knowledge, I said just be patient. Let's revisit it in 6 months, 1 year. In a year, I asked them what happened. They said, "What are you talking about?" See, we wanted to have a child. Oh, that we not even thought about. Few people are there like that. In my lifetime, I have. And others, they came back after a year. It's too strong. We just usually one partner doesn't want, other wants, and then I have to explain to the one who doesn't want that look, you created a relationship, and this person just can't do without it. For serving them, you have to do. So it's all very, very reserved for these kind of desires. That's why in Vedanta they say Grihastha, the householder's life, is an accepted part of spiritual growth. There was never this concept of sannyas and all this. That is, I don't know how this came up to confuse the whole issue. It's a natural growth. by living a life of knowledge. You overcome it automatically. In fact, all the gods, goddesses are married, right? With children also. To show that, to demonstrate that. There's no harm. If it's done in the right way, with knowledge, with understanding. You got it, Pratiksha?
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, Jen?
Hi, Gautamji. So I have a question in reference to what you were saying earlier about learning through other people's experiences and not having to go through the desire yourself. So you give the example of drugs a lot, which is very obvious, but let's say you have a desire, for example, to start a business and you talk to someone and they said, "Oh, don't start a business. It's horrible. Don't do it." But then you talk to somebody else and they say, "Oh, starting a business is great. Go ahead and do it. It's really easy." So both of those people, right or wrong, they will have their own, based on their own experiences, they will give you what their opinion is. So how do you know whether to learn from somebody else's experience in that case or to go through it yourself?
No, you're talking about somebody talking about their life experiences, right? What they have done.
Mm-hmm.
We are talking about something very different. We're talking about, do you need to go through business for your spiritual development or not? Now, they're not talking in that context. You understand? I don't find anybody who's done that for in the terms of a spiritual context. So you're bringing in a different context here. We are saying what her question is, do you need to go through something to overcome it? Or can you overcome it through knowledge? You can overcome it through knowledge. Like I give the example of drugs because it's easy to understand, right? You don't have to go through drugs. You don't have to talk to, I mean, that's what you're doing. You're learning from the experience of all these people. And that has created a principle, which is called knowledge. And you use that knowledge to say, look, I don't have to go through this. So now this person is saying business is great, or this person is saying it's not. Now the question for you is, do I need to go through business or not as a part of my spiritual development? So is that desire so powerful? Then you go through it and then take the input and of people who've done it, how they've done it, and how to learn from it. That of course you can do. But you may have a desire to go through, a very strong desire to do business. Another person is saying, no, you must disregard that person. In fact, business mentality is very different from a person who does a job. See, there are two different mentalities. Business and entrepreneurs mentality, they can't do jobs under somebody. Person who's made to do jobs under people, they're terrible entrepreneurs. That's not their, they can't take decisions and think far ahead. They're told what to do, they do it. Get a salary. Most people are like that, passive. So all that comes is different. The principle is you can get over any desire through knowledge. You don't have to go through experience. Once you understand that there's something better, the lower just drops off. Unless it's a very powerful desire, which I've explained. Then you do your due diligence and find out how it has to be done. Get it?
Question 3 by Pratiksha A. What exactly is enlightenment and how does one recognize it? B. Does enlightenment mean complete surrender and no involvement in material or karmic life? C. What truly happens after one becomes enlightened?
See, the easiest way to understand this, Pratiksha, is you are going through these three states of consciousness, right? There's a deep sleep state, there's a dream state, and a waking state, which you're in right now, correct? Enlightenment is when you cross these three states and enter the fourth state of pure consciousness. Right now, you're conscious of the waking state, conscious of dream, of deep sleep. This consciousness of makes it conditioned, limited. So, when consciousness remains in its pure state without any conditioning, that's called enlightenment. So, the easiest way to understand it is when you wake up from the dream, you are liberated from all the conditioning of the dream. See, in the dream, you're conditioned by your dream body. If there's a dream sun, you'll feel hot. If somebody pricks you in the dream, you bleed, you feel pain. You're conditioned by that dream body. You're conditioned by your dream mind. If somebody insults you in the dream, you are agitated, etc. But when you wake up, you're fully liberated. Nothing can happen to you. You overcome that body, mind, intellect of the dream. That's the only way we can understand enlightenment. You get it? So, no involvement in material karmic life. Imagine when you've woken up from a dream, you go back into the same dream. What will be your attitude? Would you have any interest in it? The only interest is to bring people out of that madness. So that's what an enlightened soul does. A truly enlightened soul has no other interest because there's nothing the dream can give them. So Krishna tells Arjuna in the Gita also, Tesham evanukam partham. Out of mere compassion for you people, I'm acting. There's nothing in this world you can do for me. There's nothing in the three worlds that is unattained by me. Why are you acting? Mere compassion. Unnecessarily suffering. That's all they do. So if somebody is not interested in coming out of this madness, they go to the next person. That person not interested, they go to the. No one is interested, they'll be by themselves. Know what to do. Which is why most of them were by themselves because nobody is interested. Why waste our time? You got it? And that's a negative way of looking at it. The positive way is when you reach Turiya, the fourth state, you reach infinite bliss. You reach a state of complete happiness. So it's like a trillionaire, and in a dream you're getting $10. Would you be interested? Because you will say at least in our world there's some joy. See, compared to enlightenment, it's $10 for a trillionaire. It has no meaning whatsoever. Even that is wrong because at least $10 is something. He'll say I have a trillion and 10. So, but this is infinite. So what can interest them? There is nothing. So you must understand it like that. They have no interest because they are enjoying such a high state. How will you have interest? You're a trillionaire, will you have interest in earning $10? The guy who has nothing would be highly interested in earning $10. Shri?
Gautamji, there's a question from Nick in the chat. The question is, how does one practice Vedanta while living with trauma patterns such as PTSD that create psychological responses? Does the mind need to be regulated and healed first, or can Vedantic inquiry itself become part of the recovery?
So, so Vedanta will help a person, to put it generally, who has some intellect functioning. See, the Vedanta deals with the intellect being able to control emotions of the mind, including whatever traumatic experiences or emotions one has. But if the intellect is not able to function, then the person needs to have the correct medical, psychological treatment to help them come to a point where the intellect can start functioning. So, you need to have some intellect, thinking, reasoning available to take advantage of this great knowledge. That's the minimum requirement.
Question 4 by Pratiksha. A. What is real meditation? B. What do sages or monks actually experience when they are deeply absorbed and unaffected by the outside world? And how can one begin practicing that depth of meditation? C. What is the difference between mindfulness and meditation?
So a couple of weeks back, I went to give a lecture to a group of CEOs, and they chose this topic, mindfulness. I asked them, why don't you define to me what you want me to talk about? Mindfulness. None of them had answer. Simply mindfulness. What is mindfulness? Hmm? Mindfulness. Hmm? Your mind is full. In fact, Vedanta wants to make your mind empty. All rubbish, all the desires are what is causing your problem. You have to empty the mind to become enlightened. Hmm. So mindfulness is completely against. But so all I'm saying is simply some word is used, it becomes a what is that trend, and everybody talks about it. Hmm. So I told them what you mean is what you must understand is it means the intellect must be able to keep the mind in control. Intellect is your capacity to think. Mind is just feeling. If you just go along with your feeling, you're in serious trouble. You feel like you may say, "What's your problem?" When you hear your phone ring, ding in the car when your text has come, what do you feel like doing? All of us would like to look at it, right? Can you go by the feeling? Intellect says, "Look, make sure you're 1 second you look at the phone just to even see who's messaged you, you could die." Now, and worse, kill others. How many times it's happened? So, being mindful boils down to the intellect keeping the mind in its place, which nobody knows how to do, and which is what Vedanta does, right? So, meditation is the intellect keeping the mind on one thought to the exclusion of all other thoughts. That is meditation. Who can do that? You're saying, how can I begin practicing? You can't. Because what disturbs meditation is the mind, the desires of the mind. Unless the desires are removed, there's no point practicing meditation. So, meditation, like that's what you said, sage or monk, only those people who are highly evolved, where the mind doesn't disturb them, can practice meditation. How can you practice? You're just starting the spiritual path. Meditation is ending the spiritual. So, meditation is the state where there's only the desire for enlightenment left, and you're trying to remove that desire. That is actual meditation. Keeping the mind into that one last desire and then ending it. This is a very, very high state. Now it's become a buzzword again. Every street corner is a meditation. It's like a yoga studio, meditation salon. Every strip mall there's a something or the other. So this is the world now. What do you? There's no head or tail in anything anybody does. I'm not against meditation, but there's a place and time for it. Correct. You'll read now. You're attending the Gita class, Pratiksha. So you'll see now. We're ending the 5th chapter soon, and 6th chapter talks about it, and he gives right in the beginning of that chapter who's qualified to meditate. So it's not just I'm bringing something out of the hat. It's there.
Question 5 by Pratiksha. A. Does chanting really help in spiritual growth? If so, how does it work? B. What is the most effective way to chant, and which mantras support spiritual progress?
Chanting, praying, singing, devotion, these are all devotional practices, right? And what is devotion? Devotion is that pure feeling that you want to merge with the self. You want to become one with divinity. That is devotion, that feeling. Hmm. So, chanting and prayers and all are meant to promote that feeling in you, right? When you Before class we have bhajans, right? What is that devotional music for? So if you have that feeling of devotion, it makes that feeling surface, right? You keep that thought going. That's what it's for. Whole spiritual path is to keep the thought of the higher. When you do it through knowledge, what you're doing now, it's called jnana, the path of knowledge. When you do it through pure feeling, it's called devotion, which chanting and prayers and singing are meant to generate. And when you do it through your day-to-day action, you're working for an unselfish cause, it's called karma. All three have to be done, depending on your constitution. So, of course, it will help you. So, effective way is whatever inspires you. Some people like to chant the shlokas, like we chant the Gita shlokas, right? Some people like bhajans. One person said, I don't like anything. But I said, would you like watching nature documentary? He says, yes, that I can do. I said, do that. Seeing the wonder of nature, the animals and how nature functions, that inspires you to think of the divinity. So it's all individualist. So some people, bhajans, they like to do half an hour a day. Some people say 15 minutes is more than enough. Person who's very emotional may need 45 minutes. It's like that. So find what inspires you, keeps that feeling, and you can do that. That's individualistic, right? So like in the academy as a yardstick, we do half an hour of bhajans every day. So that we've seen through decades, my guru and what's continuing, that is enough for most people, right? But some may need more because the academy is meant for predominantly intellectual who are seeking knowledge, right? So the most of the day is lectures and discussions, and then a lot of it is karma also, action, unselfish service. So depends on your individual constitution. Got it? And which mantras support all the mantras which are spiritual, anyone will support. Nothing better or worse. Some people like it in their language. Some people like the original Sanskrit. Whatever you prefer. See, everybody says we love to listen to Kabir's dohas, the bhajan. Why? Because it's not just emotion. Even the intellect is functioning. Because all his verses are talking pure knowledge, right? माटी कहे कुमार से तू क्या रौंदे मोए एक दिन ऐसे आएगा मैं रौंदूंगी तोए. So he says the mud is telling the potter, what are you shaping me? One day you're going to end up like me. One day you'll become me. You think you're shaping me? You're nothing but me in the future. So it's sung, but there is an intellectual flavor to it. So everybody enjoys it, right? So it's like that. Choose whatever inspires you.
Question 6 by Shrikar. In the section on manifestations of Brahman, chapter 20, the supreme reality of the Vedanta treatise, Swamiji describes how a highly evolved spiritual person finds the expression of divinity everywhere, while someone less evolved may need to see something more spectacular. Question: is this somewhat analogous to the theme expressed in chapter 10 of the Bhagavad Gita, where, as described in the introduction, Krishna chooses himself as the very best among all species and objects? The deliberate use of the superlative makes it easy for even the less evolved to recognize the latent glories of his countless manifestations.
Question is long, answer is yes. Yes, correct. Next. What he's saying is correct. That's all he's asking. Is it so? In chapter 10 of the Gita, Krishna says, you're right, I am of mountains, I am the Himalayas. Of fish, I am the shark. Or like that, he goes on. In other words, he takes the best of animals, I am the lion. Yeah, of birds, I am the eagle. So obviously, the mind finds it easier to associate divinity with the best. Although the truth is, even the God or the self or divinity is the substratum of the entire world, including good and bad. So whether it's a landfill or whether it's the Niagara Falls, it's all divine. But you find it very difficult to associate garbage in a landfill with divinity, obviously. So they would take, I am of waterfalls, I am Niagara. It's like that. So that's why I said the answer is yes. You're right. That's why he chooses the best expressions. But for good measure, just to say it's good and bad, he uses one bad out of, I don't know, we should count it, 40 good, 50 good. He says of the fraudulent, I am gambling. Dhyutam chalayatam asmi. Means that of all the fraudulent activities, gambling is when you want to gain something out of nothing. Says that's the worst trade a human can have. Because even the fraud fellows, they at least work for the fraud. At least they put in a lot of hard work, effort. I'm not saying it's right, but they're at least putting in work for what they're getting. These fellows, they want to put $1 and get $100 instantly. That's the attraction. So that is the worst tendency, not to work for what you get. That's why he says, all the fraudulent activity, this gambling. So all are correct, but obviously mind functions on principle of thought association. Clear?
Question 7 by Shrikhar. Reference Bhagavad Gita chapter 5 verse 17. The translation reads, with mind and intellect established in that, with that as the supreme goal, they whose sins have been dispelled by knowledge reach a state of no return. Question. The commentary describes how one who has reached the ultimate goal never regresses to a sinful life. How does one apply this to spiritual aspirants at a very early stage?
It doesn't apply to spiritual aspirants at a very early stage because you're not established. See, it is relative and absolute. Even relatively, not at a very early stage, but later on in life, if you have really acquired certain qualities, it has become so much a part of you. You may deteriorate in other areas, but that quality will not leave you. It's true. Because you have actually understood. So, for example, a person has really understood that, look, I don't want to harm other creatures for my selfish satisfaction. I'm not going to eat other animals. Let's say he's actually understood that and he's overcome that. Whatever happens, he will not regress. He'll say, no, thank you. Even though he earlier had a taste for it. Because that quality is acquired, is understood from the bottom of his heart, as it were. No. Or a person says, I will not break the law, whatever it is. They will not do it. They will not waver from their conscience because become a part of it. But in other areas, they may deteriorate. The person may go through divorce after divorce. He doesn't know how to handle anything. His mess his life is. But this he will not leave. So, to the extent you have acquired a higher quality, really acquired, before it's really become a part of you, you can still regress. That's why I said early stage it doesn't apply. But later on, even before enlightenment, certain qualities you will not compromise because they become a part of you. You don't come down. Enlightenment, how can you come down? When you've woken up from the dream, you don't enter that same dream. That's not possible. That's why it's a state of no return. It's a permanent state. Enlightenment. That's it. It's done. If you're not enlightened, you have to come back. Die also, you will come back because the desires are all there, which made you born, which created your birth in the first place. That's why they mean state of no return. That is the goal of a spiritual aspirant. The Upanishads, they say, I am not coming back. Ma Bigam, Shweta Lindu, Adaktam, Adaktam. I am not coming back to be covered in that blood and slime of the mother's womb. Toothless yet hungry all the time. Look how he puts it. Come back again to this. Toothless means everybody, nothing to do with the baby. Just as the baby is toothless, yet it wants to be fed all the time. It's powerless. The whole life is like that. You're constantly dependent on others to cater to you. Desires are in. So I'm not coming back to that. Whatever happens. He makes a vow to himself after leaving his guru's house that I'm going to live a life so I don't have to come back. And here they have some film songs. Saat Janam, Saat Saat. What? 7 lives will be together. Nonsensical. One life itself, they're fighting and screaming all the time. 7 lives. Songs going on. Seven lives you want? Huh? One life itself.
Question 8 by Akshay. How did we catch up in this delusion or Maya? How to get rid of this delusion?
I think he said, how did we get caught up? It must be a mistake. So, as we have explained, Akshay, the Maya illusion, we don't know Brahman. How can you understand how you come out of Brahman? Brahman is the reality. All we can project, the only logical explanation is, as long as something exists, there is a possibility not to recognize it as it is. That we all can understand, right? As long as there's a rope lying, it's possible that a person doesn't recognize the rope as a rope. And when he doesn't recognize the rope as a rope, what happens? You misapprehend it as something other than the rope. You see a snake. Oh my God, there's a snake there. Actually, it's a rope. Now the fall leaves are all fallen here. And some of them are, the oak leaves, they get curled up. In the night, under a lamp, it looks like a frog. Literally, some of them. And sometimes you think it's a leaf, it's actually a frog. Suddenly they'll jump over it. It's like that. Especially raining like today. So, as long as something exists, there's a possibility you don't see it as it is. So, similarly, they say, as long as Brahman exists, there's a possibility you don't recognize Brahman as Brahman. So, ignorance of Brahman is inherent in Brahman, in anything. And now we do know that we don't know Brahman, therefore, we are projecting this world. This illusion, which is called Maya. So how do you get rid of this illusion? How do you get rid of that snake? Only when you understand it's a rope. There's no other way. The minute you understand it's a rope, there's no snake. So the minute you realize the self, this delusion is gone. It's incredible, but it's true. Problem is, like you said, how are we caught up? Because the desire and attachment for that illusion is so powerful that it prevents you from pursuing anything beyond it. That's the problem. All of us are caught up in its grip. This is Maya, all powerful. That's why all religions personify desire as the devil standing between a human and God. What is the devil? It's not a person. It's your own mind, the desires. Every religion has them. Satan in Christianity, Shaitan, Mara in Buddhism, Rakshasa, Asura in Hinduism, and there's a constant fight between the divine and the demonic. It's actually what the fight between you and your desires. So the only way is you have to want to get out of it and start doing the action necessary. That's it. You don't want to get out, you remain. It'll go on. As long as there's cause, ignorance, effect, this world will be there. It's pure cause and effect. Clarifications? Yes, Priya.
So if, like you said, if something exists, there is always a possibility of not knowing it as it is. Then how do we explain the fact that when you get self-realized or whoever is enlightened, why would they not come back then? Because then there's always the possibility of ignorance.
Because they've overcome that ignorance which has caused that in the first place. See, those who have reached enlightenment have said, once you get there, you don't come back.
Right.
That's it. So you have to go by what they have said. You can't know. It's not like what you're seeing now. See, once you recognize that the snake is a rope, you're not going to see it as a snake.
Right.
That's all. Just because in the rope it exists, that you can see it as a snake. It happened once, right? You saw it as a snake. But once you understood it's a rope, how can you see it as a snake again? That's it. So no, once you having understood it's a rope, I can see a snake. No, it will not happen. Because you didn't understand it's a rope, you're seeing the snake. So it's quite straightforward actually. You don't need, it's logical even now. And those who reach there throughout the scriptures, yad gatva na nivartante, tad dhama paramam. Once you go there, you can't come back. That is the supreme. That's permanent. Amritam, beyond death, deathless, permanent, throughout the scriptures. Paramananda, Paramrita, Parimuchanti Sarva is the Upanishads. It's the supreme bliss, the supreme immortality, and the total liberation from all sides. So, once you see it, how can you come back to ignorance? It doesn't make any sense, right? Same thing. Agamani?
Quick follow-up question, Gautamji. When you say you don't come back, here the you is the subtle body, because subtle body is what
You don't come back is consciousness, is divinity, the self. When you get to enlightenment, you are the self. There's no subtle body. Subtle body is desires. This is all gone. So you remain in that state of pure consciousness. That's it. It's the finality. Right? That's why the subject is Vedanta. Anta, it's ended. Veda knowledge, the culmination, the ultimate knowledge, ends there. Beyond that, you can't. Correct? Right now, the consciousness is covered by desires. Right? That is you. What is Agamani is consciousness covered by desire. All of us. Right? Once that covering is removed, only consciousness remains. Body is just a vehicle to fulfill the desire. It's irrelevant spiritually. There's consciousness, there's desire, and there's a body. Body is just a shell. Once you remove the desire, it's gone. Yeah.
Gautamji, how do you define in the Kaivalya Swami was explaining, he referred to as shallow thinking. So, how do you define shallow thinking, and how does one recognize whether I'm thinking shallow?
What is shallow thinking? In what context did he say that?
I think
Is shallow thinking in terms of the concepts of Vedanta, or shallow thinking as a person who has low level of thinking? What was the context? There are two ways. I don't know exactly what he said and when. You have to tell me what's the context. You had a question, you should know what.
in the context, I'm just trying to think. It was, I think, mantra 4. He was trying to explain, when somebody reads this, you should be so inspired.
So it's terms of the concepts, no? When somebody reads this, it should be so inspired. So shallow thinking is, I have read this before. Kavalya Upanishad says you must get to the self. Shraddha, Bhakti, Dhyana, Yoga, the way he. By Shraddha, Bhakti and Dhyana, you will reach enlightenment. I know Shraddha, I know Bhakti, I know Dhyana also. Next verse. This is shallow thinking. Now, the depth you have to go into. What is he trying to say? What exactly is Shraddha? Why don't I have that Shraddha? Where am I like? All that is the depth of thinking, where the knowledge speaks to you and you're inspired by the fact that you have to pursue it. So that should happen with every concept you listen, every morning. My God, what is this saying? Where is this and where am I? And what effort do I have to put? Where all that is the depth, right? Where it really hits you. So we have to get into that frequency. If you really want to understand and grow with Vedanta, then you've got to go deep. Not just mantra 5 I read. 6 is also pretty good. And in your cocktail party, you'll quote it also. Isha Vasyam Midam Sarvam. And everybody think you're brilliant. This is shallow. You understand?
And also, relatively, I wanted to know in day-to-day circumstances, my thinking, whether it's shallow or it's, how is that?
In day-to-day circumstances, you should stop thinking. That's the best thing to do. Forget shallow or deep. You stop thinking for a while. I would say everybody here will agree with that, no? Let's stop thinking completely for some time. In day-to-day life, shallow thinking. Day-to-day life, shallow would refer to material sensual living, when you're only concerned with what's around you. What is depth is to make sure whatever you're doing in life is to help you get to the self. Like Wordsworth says, plain living and high thinking are no more. So day-to-day life would be whatever you do it for reaching the higher, and you minimize your taking from the world. Plain living, frugal. Whatever I need from this world, I'll take, not more, not less. So anything excess I have, it has to be given for others. Whatever I need, I keep, but not more than that. Plain living, high thinking. Plain loving doesn't mean you don't have a nice car. You can. Well, yes, I need a nice car. You get that. Beyond that, why do you want to go on thinking about it, right? You have a nice house, nothing wrong. You have to move in now. The next thing you told me plain living, I moved into a studio. I was living in a 5-bedroom. Nothing. It's not that. It's minimize. That is depth of living, right? You must analyze. All good? So any further questions, we can take them next week. I will see you on the weekend. Hari Om.